Welcome to this exciting 3D modeling tutorial on ArtStudio 313. In this video we will learn how to edit meshes, use modifiers, and finish with a stunning render. If you enjoy creative content like this, your support makes all the difference. Please like this video, subscribe to my channel, and hit the bell icon so you never miss an update. By watching the entire video and exploring my other content, you're helping me to continue to create and share valuable tutorials. Let's build something amazing together. I like to start with this very nice coin. For creating a coin, we can press Shift and A and we go directly on the meshes, and we can use cylinder in this case because the shape of the cylinder is almost like the coin as you saw in the reference image. And then I like to start with a very low vertices. The rest is going to be done in the editing. So we can press tab and we directly move to editing. Now here we can press S for scale and we scale it in the Z axis. Just a little bit. And then we press 7 to look at from top. So you can press 1, 3, 7, and 9 to switch to the orthographic modes. In this case, by pressing 7 on your keyboard, you can look at from top orthographic. And then we press Shift Z. By pressing Shift Z, you quickly switch between solid mode and wireframe mode, or you can press Z and choose or cycle between these two. Let's press 3 for faces and we select these two faces at the top, and then we press I. That's perfect. Then we press Alt H because we want to extrude it out, right? So if we press not Alt H but Alt E. If you press Alt E, we can have access to the extrude menu, and then we can choose extrude face along normal. So all of these menus is hidden under these small triangle. You can hold a second and you will have access to those. As soon as you choose it, you can select it by holding down Shift and create this very nice extrude inside. So since we have selected both of the faces, we will extrude them in this way. Very low poly coin. So how we can make these very round to create the edges sharper is to assign more vertices on the setting of the cylinder. So if I just type 64 in the first window when it's pop up, we will get these very nice and sharp edge. And then we only need to select these two faces. Let's press W to select the select box, and we press I for inside the face, and then we just need to scale it down. And then Alt E, Alt E, and extrude face along normals. And that's it. Right click and it's done with only a few clicks. So this is the fastest way. Let's press F2 and name it to coin. Another way for making the edges sharper is to assign loop cut, and then we can assign the subdivision modifier. So let's press Shift A and we go and add a new cylinder. In this case, I like to set it to 16, for example, and then I move it towards here. Let's scale it down, and I do all the steps that I did for the first coin. Alt E and face along normals just a little bit. So you see, this is very low poly and this is high poly. So we can convert this low poly mesh to high poly with a really sharp edges. And here we will see all the modifiers is located. We can add modifiers, and mostly we will use in this tutorial, we will use the generate. And in the generate we will use a few of these modifiers such as subdivision, solidify, and mirror. We will use bevel. If I just use bevel, you will see that It starts smooth out the edges, and then we can play around with the amount and give that some more segments, but still we have these edges sharper. So let's get rid of these, and then we want to add the subdivision modifier. As soon as I add it, we can set it to level, more level in viewport and render. Viewport is what you will see here, and the render is what you will see in the final render output. So this is not sharp at all. How we can make it sharper? Let's turn it off in real time. And well, we can combine subdivision with loop cuts. So now we can press Ctrl R to assign the loop cut. You can press T to see the list, or you can press T again to turn it off. And then yeah, we can click here, and with the help of this tool we can assign loop cuts. So all of these is explained in the first tutorial. Now we can select this edge, and then we can Ctrl B to build that edge. And actually what we are trying to do is to create a boundary really close to the next edge. So we actually added this boundary or the edges close to this edge. Then we can do the same thing here. Let's press Ctrl R and add the loop cut. Very close. As this is close to the center one, the edge is going to be more sharper. You can see it clearly. If I just click on this cage, and we can now work on it in real time. So let's click here, GG 2 times, make it very, very sharp. GG 2 times and make it very, very sharp. Now you'll see how it starts to react. So you got the idea. So let's grab it, GG 2 times, and we can do the same thing here and do the same thing for this area, and one for here. Almost for all the edges we need this. Ctrl R, Ctrl B to bevel it. It's the fastest way we can achieve. Of course we can, for example, for this part use mirror modifier, but let's keep it as it is, and later I will talk about mirror modifier. Now I like to press I to insert another face, and then I for insert another face. Now let's click on here, and you will see, wow, now it's very smooth. So this is the second way that you can make the edges sharper. We will use this method for modeling the rest of the objects. The next one is going to be this palette and paintbrush. First we can model the paintbrush. For that we can use actually a cylinder once again, but with a very low vertices, since we want to use a couple of modifiers such as subdivision modifier to make the rest. So we can enter a tab and we go to edit mode. Here I look around it, that from which direction we can use it. First we need to select this bottom face, and we want to bevel that bottom face, and I want to add a couple of segments, and then we can play around with it with the width. That's perfect. Let's now scale the top face, scale it down and move it up. Somewhere around here should be fine. And then we extrude it once again in Z-axis, and then I scale it down again. And now I press Ctrl and 2 to assign two level of subdivision in this case, and then we can enter tab and press 2 for edges, and we can slide these edges in case if we want to make these parts sharper or less sharp, and then we can scale it to give a very nice shape. That's perfect. Now I like to select this area. By pressing 3, we can select this face, and we can press Shift D to duplicate it, then press P to separate that duplication. And now we can use another modifier it called for Solidify. Let's move the Solidify, or let's leave it as it is. Let's demonstrate first. We can solidify, add thickness with the help of Solidify. So we added the thickness, but the order is very important. I like to drag it above the subdivision modifier. And now, when the Solidify is first, it creates this very nice effect. It makes the mesh solidy. Then we want to smooth it out. The order is very important. Now let's manipulate it further. Scale it down. Another way to scale it down, sometimes when we just scale it down, it doesn't work too good. So instead, we come to the push or pull. We hold a second, and we, instead of push and pull, we want to choose shrink or flatten. In this case, we want to shrink it down. So select this yellow color and shrink it down. And it will work a lot better. Now let's select the top edges or faces and move it slightly up. At the same time, you can scale it now. Let's scale it from a larger distance. So as you can see, we have these underneath it, so we can press GG 2 times to move it down even. Well, let's leave it as it is. Now let's work and finish the rest. So from here I can press 2 for edges, press Shift and D to duplicate it, then press P to separate that part. So now because we have the Solidify modifier first, we can get rid of that because we don't need anymore the Solidify modifier. I like to select these edge. Since this is just edge, we press F to fill that edge, and we scale it down, move it down again. And now from here, I like to extrude it once. And then let's assign a loop cut at the center of it. And then we scale it again. Scale it just a little bit more. And we press 3 for face. And then we grab this bottom face and we press I for this guy, which is inset face, and then we move it down. And that's it. So let's work more on it. Let's grab these edges, make it scale, and let's extrude it once again. And now we want to scale it towards this way. Of course, we can always tweak these thickness, and we can always scale it down. So now you can see that its origin point is under the ground. So let's right click and set origin to geometry, and now it will be scaled based on its geometry. I like to move it down just a little bit. And that's perfect. Of course, we can at any time just play around with it. In case if you want to make the edge very sharp, you can make it by just adding an inset face. Let's press GG 2 times and grab this one GG 2 times. Boom. So that's about this. We can save by pressing Ctrl S, and you see that this is the project that I worked on it. Let's name this one for day 2, since we already published a very basic intro of the Blender for beginners, and we can name it day 1, and this one is going to be the next day for practicing. We select everything and shade out to smooth to make it very smooth. And now let's model the palette as well underneath it. So let's hide it for a second, and we can name it or create a new collection. We can name it to, for example, paint. And let's click here to hide it. Now it's time for the rest. So for the palette we can use a cube or a plane in this case. Let's go with plane, which is easier. We need to right click and subdivide it a couple of times. Let's right click and subdivide once again. That's perfect. We start with the low poly and we move later to the a bit complexer. I try to make these parts round, so let's select these two edges, move them in y-axis, and scale. Let's set it to bounding box and scale it inside. And now let's select these edges and these edges. And then let's move it inside. We can move this one inside as well. Another way is that we can press 2 for edge, and we want to bevel this edge with only one time. Then we can play around with the width. Enter tab and grab all these parts. And that's perfect. Okay, so what should we do? What is the next plan? Well, we can use a Solidify modifier to make that some thickness. It can be in this way. Let's 0.3 should be fine. And then on top of that we can use Subdivision modifier, and then as you see the Subdivision modifier will make this kind of job. So let's hide everything, and I like to make it very round. So let's select both of these parts, and now let's make it rounder. To make these edges sharp, we can actually go and apply the Solidify modifier first. So let's click here and apply Solidify modifier, and now we have got these mesh. It's not it is no longer face only. Now then we can press Ctrl and B to assign loop cut. Then we can select that loop cut and Ctrl B. Let's turn it off. You will see it clearly. And then let's select all these faces, all the faces. Hold on Ctrl and hold on Alt and Shift to deselect these faces from here, since we don't want to add any inset face to this part. We just need to add the inset face to the top and the bottom part. Now we press I for inset face, and I once again. And now just take a look. If I just turn on how this will work. Wow, very nice. We could make it even sharper, but that's going to be fine. Let's add instead of 3 level of subdivision, and let's turn it on. Wow, this is very big, so let's scale it down, and the normal size should be around this cube, which is fine. Select it and we can rotate it later. So let's, for now, let's move it as it is, and let's delete the cube as well. Then later we can just press RR 2 times for each of these, RR 2 times. Before finishing modeling these very nice object, I need to talk about these holes that you will see on the palette. How we can create that? Well, that's very simple. What you need to do is select the palette, then move your mouse, hover your mouse here on the rotation. So first you need to press N in case to open up the items, then choose the item, and then go to the transform, and then move your mouse here, and then press backspace. You can do the same thing on the location, then press backspace. It will reset all the location X, Y, and Z, and the same thing for the rotation. Now we easily can assign a cylinder, and we can make it very smooth. And then I like to look at from top, and we can scale it down. Let's move it somewhere around here, should be fine. Now, in case we want to make that hole, so what should we do? First, let's turn it off, and then let's click here on the viewport overlays and turn on geometry or the wireframe. So make sure to move it slightly towards this way. Select the cylinder and move it here, because I don't like to, this part will intersect with this edge that we have got. The location is good somewhere here. Let's turn it back. For creating a hole like this one, we can actually assign another modifier. We can go to generate, and then we will find the Boolean. As soon as it applies, it will search after the object or the target. We can select this eyedropper and then choose this cylinder 0.003. And as soon as I do, you will see this geometry all over these piece. So let's move it up instead, and now we will don't see that issue, but we still have this kind of problem inside. And you can see how moving these modifiers up and down, how they will affect the geometry of the model itself. Now let's go to solid mode, select it, and then go to object properties, data, open up viewport display, and set the display as to wire. In this order, we can see the model or the target as a wire, and we can control or check the hole that we created. Here we have got a very nice hole. So let's click here, turn on the subdivision to a bit lower. Let's leave it as it is. So now we created this hole as well. Let's turn it off. Now we can select it and shade out to smooth both palette and this target. Now as you can see, the palette is already smoothed out, but we need to select the circle, which is selected, but we can't see it until we turn these overlays on. Then right click and shade out to smooth, and now you will see this part is very smooth. So that's very quick fix. Now for the rest, we can just enter tab, press A to select everything, and press shift D to take a duplication of this cylinder. Now as you can see, if I just move it around, it will cut it around the area that we need. But I don't like to cut it the whole panel. So let's press G, select it in Z axis. We need a little bit of this effect. That's perfect. Let's select it once again. Press A to select this part only. And then I like to create another one. And Shift D, add another one as well. That's perfect. At any time we can select it and just click here to apply it. And you will see what is happening if I just apply it from this moment. The result isn't too good. So let's keep it later. When I talk about rendering, we will talk about the how to apply these modifiers. So currently let's select everything, and we want to leave it as it is, and let's move this to the color palette as well. Let's hide it again. The next one is modeling the basketball. For that, we press Shift A and we go to Mesh and we choose UV Sphere. We want to set it to 16 instead of 32, and we just leave the rest as it is. Let's press 1 to look at from front orthographic, enter tab, and we move to faces. Let's press Shift and Z, select the bottom faces, and press X, delete the faces. Look at from top, we press W to select this circle option, X and delete the faces. Press 2 for edges and press double a couple of times to select the select box again, and we hold on Alt to select a loop edge. Then we move to vertices by pressing 1. I like to deselect these two edges. Then we press 2 for select just these edges. We actually need to select just these edges. Then right click, bridge edge loop, and Ctrl R to assign another loop cut here. Press 1 for the vertices, select these two, press F to merge them, select these two, merge them. Press 1 and select one of these edges and press F to fill that. Select it and F to fill it. Select an F to fill it. Now everything is very nice, and what we need to do is we can use a modifier called for mirror modifier and the generate. Let's set it to Z and disable the x-axis. Turn on the clipping, and now enter tab, look at from top, hold down Alt and Shift, select these two, cross, and select these which is at the center, and this one as well. Now we need to press Ctrl and B to bevel it. You have to bevel it, assign the 3 segments and play around with these. In my opinion, these should be fine. Then press 3 to select these faces, which is at the center, and hold down Shift and Alt because we want to select multiple of these, which is at the center. Since its origin point is at the center of the object, we just need to press S for scale it. Just a little bit. And because we enabled the clipping already, so we have no problem. But when it's turned off, we will get some problem in this area. Press Ctrl and 3 to add 3 level of subdivision, or you can add 2 level of subdivision as well, but 3 makes a lot smoother. And this is the basketball. You can press R 2 times, and let's press F2. So that's how you can create these very nice basketball. You can press H to hide it. So the next one is going to be modeling a very nice sword. For sword, we can use a cube. We can enter tab, look at from front orthographic by, you can follow these nice add-on. I like to scale it in the axis. Then look at from top again. I like to select these back edge and move it in y-axis. Then press Ctrl R to assign a loop cut at the center. And then we press 1 for the edges. Then I like to select the back edges or vertices S and scale it in x-axis. Then let's grab these front edges G and Y, move it in y-axis like so. We can make this part just scaling x-axis again. Then I like to extrude this area. So let's press 3 for faces. We selected now the back faces as you see. And then E for extrude it. And as soon as I extrude, I like to press S and scale it down again. That's perfect. So another thing, now we created this very basic shape of a sword. Another thing is that we enter tab, Ctrl R once again, and then we want to scale it in this area. Just press S for scale, then scale it in x-axis as well. Let's press 1, select, grab these front vertices and move it out. So we created this very nice shape. And then what I can do is select this part, S and Y, and then press 0. In this way we can reset this part. So we press S, Y, and then type 0 to reset this part. And then let's select this area, and I like to press Alt and E and trace along normals. Then you can press S, as this allows you to turn on offset even. Then you can just play around with this part. Let's press 1, select these two vertices and move them in y-axis. You can see how. And then let's grab these two edges, G, and move them towards this way. Let's grab these two as well, G, and move them to make those straight line almost. Do the same thing for these two. And now let's press 2 for edge, and I select all these edges, and let's move them back a bit. As this allows us to see these nice sharp part. I think we extrude that too much. Let's make it smaller in size. Select this part S, Y, and 0 to make these very sharp again. And now press 2 for edges and extrude it in y-axis once more. And select this area by holding down Alt, select these faces, loop face, Alt E, and extrude face along normals, then press S again. Now it's fine. So we created the blade until now. A very nice shape. So what else can we do? First, let's select these two edges and we press S and Z to scale them in this direction. And then I select these faces, right click, and you will see these loop tools. And you actually maybe don't see it until you enable it. So let's press Ctrl Z. Let's go to Edit, Preferences, and in the Add-on tab, you have to enable the add-on that you are looking for. This is loop tools. If you don't have the loop tools in your add-ons menu, you can go to Get Extensions. For the first time, you have to install all these extensions. Make sure to connect to the internet, and then click on the add-on. And this is going to download all the add-ons or the plugins from blender.org website. And then once it's done, you can just go here and search for loop tools, and it will be available. And then click on install as this button, because I already installed, so there is no button for installation. And then that's it. So make sure to then click on Save Preferences. And now, after all these steps, you can select these faces and loop tools and convert it to a circle. That's it. Then you can subdivide it even, and then circle, make it circular. And you can press E for extrude, and then E once again, and E once again. So let's select this area by Alt and extrude it just a little bit. And then let's select this part, hold down Alt and select on the edges. Make sure to be in phase and select on the edges to select that loop. Or let's press 2 for edges, hold down on Alt and select these edges, G and Y. Make it something like that, a lot better. Press 3, select all these spaces, look at from top, and E once again. And now hold on Alt E. Now it's a lot better. So we created this very nice sword, low poly sword. Then, of course, you can go here and just play around with the matte cap that you like. For example, this matte cap looks very nice. You can go to viewport and change the viewport color to any color you like. Let's turn off all the overlays, and boom, you will see this very, very nice. Okay, let's right click, shade out to smooth. That's perfect. Let's press F2. Sword. Now it's time for creating or modeling a very nice crown. For that, we can press Shift A and we add a cylinder. We want to set this vertices to 12, since we want to use another very exciting modifier that I might didn't use it until now. Then let's enter tab, select these faces at the top, and we delete those. And then let's select these 3 faces, then press Ctrl I to inverse this selection, X, and delete those faces as well. Now we have got only these 3 faces. Scale it down. That's great. And then let's extrude these edge for the first time. We can look at from an angle, if extrude in Z-axis, and then E once again, but in this time we need to scale it really large. That's fine. And then E for extrude once again, but we need to scale it down. Let's move it up and scale it down. So this is the very basic shape. Let's assign another loop cut for here. by Ctrl R we can assign that loop cut. And then I like to select these two edges, and then we look at from top orthographic. You can see we're selected already. And then let's turn on proportional editing. Proportional editing, I explained that in the first tutorial that I published and I mentioned in the beginning of this course. So let's turn it on, and we want to set it to sphere or at least smooth. Then we want to move it by G, and you can see that the proportional editing, if I just turn on, hold on shift and play around with the amount of the proportional, we will get more effect out of that. It even will be affected the rest. Okay, you can see how it will be affect. So the amount up here is really important. So you can just use your scroll up and down your mouse wheel. But let's set it to less than that, 0.4 or 3. And then grab that and press Shift Z to block out the Z axis, because we don't like to move things in Z axis. Something around this. And you can see this is the shape that we got. Now I'd like to turn it off, G, and move it back again. That's perfect. Okay, so now let's click on modifiers, and we go and assign a mirror modifier. And let's mirror it in Y-axis as well, and turn on clipping. On top of these, or after these, we can assign another very interesting, which we used already, and this is going to be the Solidify. The Solidify, as it looks like, it will actually create some depth or thickness to our model. And then we can press Ctrl 2 to assign to a level of subdivision. And we created this very nice and interesting actually crown. Let's change it to a flat white to just double check if things works good. I think we can change the subdivision to 3 level to make it even more smoother. Of course, we can at any time add a few loop cuts to make the edges a bit sharper, so let's find it. Turn off subdivision in order if you want to check it out. Ctrl R and turn it on again. Now it's a lot better. So that's about the crown. We can press F2 and name it a crown. And then press H to hide it. Now let's model some garden tool sets like shovel or garden hand fork. So let's start with the shovel. So we can use a cylinder again, and instead I'd like to set it to 16, and then we can start from here by selecting the very bottom face. We can press Ctrl B to bevel that part. Let's add a few segments. And then let's select this part And then I like to move it down. Let's assign another and make it just a bit rounder. And then if extrude. That's perfect. Let's press Control R to assign a new loop cut. Set it to 2. GG 2 times. You can just play around with the width. Now select the top face and if extrude and scale it down. Perfect. So this is the base shape. Let's complete it. Let's add a plane. We move it up RX and 90 degrees. Right click and subdivide it once. And then let's move this part up. Scale this to in x-axis. You will see that I set the transform pivot point to box, bounding box. If it's on individual, it doesn't work. So make sure to set it to bounding box. And now let's let's add a loop cut here. And then we want to select these edges, move it up closer. And I like to select these vertices down, move them down. Let's select these to scale it in x-axis just a little bit. That's perfect. Scale these two as well in this way. Scale them down. Down here as well. Make some gap. Now I like to bevel these 3 times. So add another bevel, 2 times. And then we need to select it once again, move it up. Let's add another loop cut in this way. And I like to move these down to make it sharper. Let's select these two. And if extrude in z-axis. Now let's move it up. Can make it just a bit bigger, and then this part we can scale it down. This is the very basic shape. You can of course change it by manipulating it further. Now it's time to shape it so that we can give it some depth. For that, we press 2 for edges. We select the inner faces, and then we use proportional editing with this case. G and move it back. Let's play around with here. G and back, even more. Let's make it smaller. And just select the edges. And then for this part, I like to move it inside. So let's grab it and GZ. And that's finish. So here is fine because we want to now add a Solidify modifier on top of it. So let's assign a Solidify modifier. Play around with it just a little bit. And 2 level of subdivision. And I like to extrude this part once more. And boom, here we have it. We can shade, smooth it, or we can add a level of subdivision to here. And then insert face, and we are done. Then we can move it closer. So that's how we model the shovel. Let's select it, new collection, and name it to garden tool set. Now let's hide it, and we can create a garden hand fork. For a garden hand fork, we can actually use the same technique. For example, we can use the same base of this mesh. So shift it to duplicate it, and then we can turn off everything. So first of all, we need to delete this area, and we select this face, delete it. Now we can grab it and scale it up. Let's turn it off. Scale them down. For this part, we can close it by pressing F, and then we can extrude it, or we can use a pre-made object or mesh. It's called for cone, and we can set it to 16 instead. Let's move it somewhere here and select this face. If extrude, and scale it down. That's perfect. Now for the fork, we can assign a plane rotated 90 degrees so we can see it. We add loop cut about 4 times. Now let's scale it down, and this way scale it up. And I will press 2 for edges. We select these 3 edge and we move or extrude them. And let's extrude it once again in the axis. Now you can make it crooked from here, as this allows you to make your shape just a bit better. So you can just select the vertices and move it around. And now it's a lot cooler. And then we need to just extrude it out first. Extrude. And then we select these faces, these 3 faces. You can press W, hold down Control to deselect it, and then extrude it out. Extrude it out, and then set it to transform pivot to the individual, and scale it down. So let's rotate this part, and we are done. Just need to move it down. Then you can press F to fill that area. That's about the fork. Let's move it to its own collection. M and move it to garden. Now let's create this very nice headphone. For creating a very nice headphone, we use cylinder again and we want to set it to 16 vertices. Let's rotate it by 90 degrees. And we want to look at, or let's rotate it in z-axis. We want to look at from front to the graphic by pressing 1. And here I like to select this face first. I like to press I for inside the face. Something around these should be fine. And then E for extrude. And then we want to press I for inside the face. Let's assign another loop cut since we want to use it later when we apply Solidify modifier, because this makes a boundary, and as well this what we have inside, and keep this edge just a bit stronger and sharper. Once that setup is finished, now we can select the edges at the back side. We move those closer, and somewhere from around here we can extrude it once again. And extrude it again. You will see that I left a gap here. That's because I like to extrude it inside to create sort of a very thin edge around it. So I can press 3, hold on Alt, and select this edge, Alt E, and face along normals. And now let's select this face, move it in X-axis just a little bit, and you can see it from front side, and then X again to extrude it out. I for inside the face just a little bit. Move it just a bit closer. Select this area and scale it down a little bit. Extrude inside. And then I for inside the face again. And extrude it out. And extrude inside the face again. And extrude it again. Or inside the face again. Now let's add some more geometry. For this part right here, I like to add a loop cut for both of the sides. The same thing for here. Control R to add the loop cut. Control R. And that's fine. Now if I just press Control 3, you will see these very interesting results. All the parts looks very interesting except this area, which I like to make it sharper. So for that, let's turn it off. And then I like to select this face, hold on Control and plus, select all this area until here, and then press P to separate that part. And then we can see if I just turn down, these will looks like so. Let's press number the slash to focus on these. Select this area, and I like to make it closer. And now numpad the slash back again. And now we can join them together by Control J. Well, before that, I like to work on this area as well. So let's press F, and then let's press I to insert the face, I insert the face, and just remove this part. and now because that's inside and nobody can see it, so I remove it. So this is the base shape. Now I took a copy of this part, you can turn it off, and press Shift and D to duplicate it, and then I like to scale it down in X-axis just a little bit, and then press Alt E, face along normal. Something like this should be fine. And you can see that this is a separated part, but it's inside this cylinder mesh. And from top, I like to select these two faces, if extrude, and extrude them in Z-axis. Let's look at from this angle, and you can scale it in Y-axis a little bit, or you can leave it as it is. Let's do it. Now we can join all of these pieces together, and we can use only one single subdivision modifier for all of these. Let's continue more. I like to select these two parts, this part, and then separate that part, right? So now I like to use these to create the rest of the part. First, let's select it and use a mirror modifier, and mirror modifier will work based on the geometry. So instead we want to use an empty for that. So let's add a cube, and we move the empty somewhere around here. Let's scale it, and now let's select it, select the eyedropper, and choose the empty as the target. And we'll see the distance between these two. So it's very long, so let's make it just a bit closer. Something like this should be fine. And now let's select this part, and we press 3. Let's select this one and move the 3D cursor at the center of the empty. And now this is the center of these two pieces. Now let's select this piece, and the origin point of this is here, but no problem because we want to work based on 3D cursor. Enter tab, select the entire shape. Let's turn it off. And now we want to use the spin. You will see that the spin, as soon as it's turned on, it will work based on 3D cursor. Let's spin it in Y-axis. What is this one for? So let's deselect this area. I see some problem here, so let's select these vertices X and delete those, and now we can select the object that we want to spin it out, and now we can start spin it out. I like to use 180 degrees for this, 180. We could use high quality steps, but since we have the subdivision enabled, that's going to be fine. That will work fine. But now we have to spin it, rotate it. Its origin point is here, so let's right click set origin to geometry, and now we can rotate it very easily. Look at the x-axis, the red line, and based on that you can match your object. Scale it down. Now I like to select this face, and let's set the transform period point to individual S, or let's press 3 for face S, and you have to try, in this case it's gonna be Z-axis, and let's select this face S, Z, and 0. Now we select both of these faces if extrude in Z-axis. Now we have got this very nice shape. We have to scale it just a little bit. and it's very nice. Now we can work on this part. That's a very simple fix. We can select it from top, and let's turn off the spin by selecting the select box. And now we can just select these two. Then we can press Ctrl and Numpad plus and scale it in y-axis first. Scale it large, and then Ctrl and Numpad plus again, and y again. Numpad plus, scale in y-axis. Oh, let's select here, and I like to scale it down a little bit. Now we've got this interesting shape. Let's continue now. S and Y. To make it like so, give that some depth. Oh, it's a lot better. And you can see if I just turn on the subdivision modifier, how it looks like. So here we need to something to hide this problem, and that can be by selecting this area, shift it to duplicate it, then press P to separate that part, and then just press A to scale it, Alt E, paste along normal. Make it like so. Even you can select the top part, scale them up slightly. And of course you can select the entire shape and scale it in X axis. And we are done about modeling the headphone. You can turn off the overlays, select everything and shade out to smooth, and that's it. You can go to the viewport shading, of course you can play around with this part just a bit more in case you want to scale, make it larger. You can do it, since this make the object interesting. So that's about modeling the headphone, and now we are good to jump into the next model. Now it's time for creating these diving goggles. Let's turn on viewport overlays. For modeling a diving goggle, we can use a plane. We look at from top orthographic, and then I select this edge and extrude in z-axis by 2 meters, since we want to create another cube shape. Then we right click and subdivide it once, and now we start to shape it. So let's select these two edges and want to scale them down by set the transfer point to bounding box, and then just move it in y-axis. Move it up a little bit, and do the same thing with these two guys. As for scale, and move them towards this way, And now let's grab this one and move it up. I like to select this part and move it up as well. Now we'll see that we created this very interesting shape. Let's enter tab, press 3 to face, and we extrude it just a little bit up in Z axis. Now if I just press Ctrl and 2, we will add 2 levels of subdivision. Right click shade auto smooth. The rest is pretty simple. We just need to rotate it 90 degrees in X axis, and we can right click set origin to geometry so they can be easier for us to follow along. Then we want to press 3 for faces, hold down Alt and select this edge loop. Shift to take a duplication of that, and then now select this edge and move it backside. For thickness we can use, you guess it already, a Solidify modifier. Let's apply it before subdivision. We can give a thickness about 2 in negative direction. So let's click here and turn on orientation, which is perfect. When you will see some face which is red color, which highlighted with the red color, that's mean that its normal has been flipped, and you have to fix that. Let's turn it off again, and it's fine. You can now turn on subdivision modifier if you want, and that's what you will get. Since these two is applied on each other, this won't work. So let's separate the pieces from each other. Let's hover your mouse on part of these piece that you want to separate, that press L, and then choose P to separate that part. Let's turn off all the subdivision modifiers, and now you can see the very basic shape of this. So I like to press Ctrl and B. I like to select this area. Oh, let's select this one and Control, hold on Alt and select this area, and I like to separate that once again, and let's see what is what. So this one is the biggest part, so let's press H to hide it, and this is the highlight around this. So let's scale it in this direction. I like to assign a Solidify modifier to that, and I like to add the thickness inside like this. And now if I just press Alt H, all the hidden parts will be applied. You can see I created this new collection. I put all the swords, etc. in that collection. And let's turn everything on again. So this object, as you can see, we need to scale it down a little bit. And then let's move the Solidify before subdivision. Another important thing is that we can make the edges sharper. How we can do that? Well, by adding, so let's turn off this, by adding loop cuts, we can make the edges sharper. Now if I just turn it on, you will see this very interesting thing is happening right here. And then you can move these just a bit inside. Even we can add a loop cut here to make it sharper even more. Now it's time for creating or modeling the strap around these diving goggles. So for that, let's select this part. We can turn this off to see what is what, and then we can grab one of these faces. For example, these looks good. Shift it to take a duplication of that, and P to separate that part. Once it's finished, we can scale it in Y-axis just a little bit, and we can scale it in Z-axis as well. Let's look at from front orthographic, and I like to rotate it. Let's turn on all the modifiers, and we want to move just a bit out this small plane. Now we have all these modifiers as well, so if I just turn those on, we will get this very interesting shape. If I just turn on Solidify, you will see these very nice bikes we have got. So we need to apply it. So first press Ctrl and A to apply Solidify modifier, and I like to get rid of this face which we have here. And if I just turn on Subdivision, we will see this nice effect. We can work a little bit on it to make it just a bit better. So for that we can assign a loop cut in both axes. Now we got a better shape. And scale it. Scale it backward. Now look at from front orthographic. Now, if I just use a Solidify modifier, it will look like this. But make sure to use it before to give us some thickness. And another thing is that you can select these and scale it to create this very interesting shape. Set to matcap. Now it's a lot easier to see. I think we can scale it in z-axis. So we can now use the same option, the spin for modeling the strap. So first of all, we need to select these two faces, Shift D and move them in y-axis. Press P to separate that part. And then I like to delete everything that I've got here. And I like to scale it in y-axis a little bit, x-axis, and in z-axis. Now, the center of these should be good. So let's move the 3D cursor here. But let's add an empty. It's a lot better to control that. Okay, so let's grab this object and select the spin, and we try to use z-axis. 12 steps should be good, and we'll get these thing which is not too cool. Just move the empty a little bit. Press Shift S and cursor to selected. Now select this object and try it once again. Wow, now it's a lot better. Let's get rid of these two faces. S, Y, and 0. Do the same thing for here, S, Y, and 0. And now I'd like to grab these two edges, if extrude them in y-axis. Let's continue. Let's select this object and scale it in y-axis a little bit. I think that's perfect. You could even select these half of these object, and we can delete it, and then grab these edges and make them flat, and then just extrude it inside. And now we have got this very interesting shape. So we can apply a mirror modifier for this to mirror it in to other side. So let's assign a mirror modifier, and we can use this as a target because we see its origin point is exactly at the center, and boom, that's it. You can use the other, but the x-axis should be fine. And about the strap, so we can assign a new subdivision modifier by Ctrl 2, and it makes it really smooth. And then we can select this object and make it just a bit tighter. And then let's grab it from here, move it in x-axis. Oh, of course, we can, for example, select these two and bevel them by one segment, and it creates these edges sharper, which is cool. Let's leave it as it is, and then let's turn it off, and we want to select these center faces, and then let's press Shift and D, and P for separate. I like to assign a Solidify modifier to that before Subdivision modifier, and oh, not to this one, let's turn it off, but to this one. Solidify before Subdivision and make it larger, and turn on the Subdivision modifier. Now turn on the Subdivision modifier for this one as well. So let's grab these two faces at the center and scale them in z-axis. And that's the last touch. Of course, we can anytime tweak this setting, such as here, for example. Now we can move these closer. Now we have got, in my opinion, a better shape. You can press 5 to look at in orthographic mode. So let's grab everything and we name it to diving goggles, and let's turn it off as well. You can reset the cursor to world origin and press 5 to get rid of. Now it's time to create the pomegranate. For that we can use a UV sphere. Let's set it to 12. And of course we will divide this one by 2. And now let's select this part, which is the top part. We can get rid of these faces. And now we can work on the top part. So let's extrude by E and then scale it. E for extrude once again. And E for extrude once again. Now we can select these a few edges by random. an E for extrude. Then we set the transform pivot point to individual origin and scale them like so. Now if I just press Ctrl and 2, by adding 2 levels of subdivision, we created this very nice granite. We just need to play around with some details, such as here. And now I like to select these edges and set it to bounding box and scale them out. And as well just a little bit up. Now one thing is missing, and that is actually the Solidify modifier, because we want to give these some thickness, right? So let's give that some thickness. If you want to close these gaps that you have here, you can just move the 3D cursor and assign a UV sphere. And then Ctrl 1, level of subdivision will be fine for here. Now let's add some leaf or leaf. So for the leaf we can use a plane. We can look at from top orthographic. And let's right click and subdivide it once, and then we can scale it down. Press 1 and select these two edges and move this one up to make it sharper. You can make it smoother by adding more loop cuts. Let's add one here, and now we can grab these. You can hold down. You can use proportional editing to make the job faster. You can take a look at from top orthographic and select these vertices and play around with them. And that's fine. Now if I just press Ctrl 2, by adding 2 levels of subdivision, we will create this very interesting shape. Let's select these edges and move it up slightly. And now we create even more interesting shape. I like to select these single vertex, hold on Ctrl and right click to extrude it. And then let's press L and separate that part. So this has the subdivision modifier, which is fine, but I like to use another modifier which call for skin modifier, and the skin should be the first modifier, then we can apply the subdivision modifier. So we can use this as a branch. Now let's select this part and make it root, and then let's select the rest. For example, let's select the last vertex, and we can set it to smooth by a big, or let's set the proportional editing size to 4, and then we select this vertex, Ctrl A to scale it down, Ctrl A and Ctrl A. Let's turn it off. And now we can select this vertex, Shift S, cursor to selected, and let's select this point or vertex, Shift S, and selection to cursor first. Let's move it, and right click, set origin to geometry. And now we can select this one, move the 3D cursor here, and select this one, cursor, selection to cursor, because we want to move this object at the cursor position. Now press RR 2 times, it will rotate based on its origin point. Of course we can move it slightly and then right click and origin to geometry. Now we have the origin point closer to this object, and we can even scale it to get just a bit bigger leaf. And now let's press Alt H or numpad slash to bring them back. And now we have to set up this scene. RR 2 times. We can move the 3D cursor. We can move the origin point of this model to here, to the bottom. Now RR 2 times. Something like this. Very interesting. RR. We can take a duplication of these once more. Let's make it bigger a little bit, or we can create another thing. So let's select this vertex, hold on Ctrl and right click to create another vertex. Now let's select this vertex, move the 3D cursor, select this one, Shift S and selection to cursor. Now it's a lot better instead of having all these to one place. And what we need to do is just move 3D cursor by Shift and right click in a certain position, or let's move it here for example, and Shift D, Shift S, cursor to selected, RR 2 times. And of course we can, for example, at any time select these faces. You can press Z 2 times in order to move to local axis. I explained everything in detail in the previous video. You can just check it out. What is the difference between local and all this stuff. And let's move it here again and Shift D and Shift S, selection to cursor, but at this time we need to rotate it just a little bit. Oh, you know, there is no Solidify modifier, so let's add before, make it a little bit solid. And now, instead of just applying the Solidify modifier to each of these lips, we can just select all of them and then hold on Shift and select this one which has the Solidify modifier at the last, then press on the viewport Ctrl L and choose copy modifier, and now these two will give the same modifier without any problem. Shift D and rotate it a little bit, and that's very nice. We can make a few larger and a few smaller. And another one here. Shift D. In this time I like to select one of these, scale it down, R in Z axis first and RR 2 times. And perfect. Shift D. Let's move it here. As for scale, Shift D once again. And boom, that's it. Our pomegranate leaf is ready. Very interesting. Let's select it, M, and create. Let's turn it off as well. And now the last model that we are going to model is the flashlight. For flashlight, we can use a cylinder, set it to 16, works very good, and enter a tab. We'll select these faces, we extrude them just a little bit and scale it. So you extrude it and right click to cancel it, but it is still is there. And then you extrude once again. And now here we need to inset face, and then I for extrude, and I once again, and then I for inset face inside. Then you can scale it down. Let's select the back face, bevel it to make it very smooth. Let's rotate it so that we can see it from front of the graphic. As you can see, if I just enter two level of subdivision, we will get this problem, and that's not actually a problem. We add a loop cut and we just move it by pressing GG 2 times in case if you want to make those parts very sharp. So that's up to you how you want to make those sharper. Very close, very sharp. Control R for this part as well. Can shade out to smooth to see a preview of what you created. And of course you can select the entire shapes and move them back, or to change the shape of your flashlight very quick. Now let's assign some button for these. We can actually select one of these pieces that you see here. Shift it, take a double click on that and separate that by P. And then let's select these edges, move them back and move it towards this way. Extrude it just a little bit. And if I just turn on subdivision, you will see we will get these dots. Let's assign a couple of segments. I like to rotate it and move it just a bit closer, somewhere here. Right click subdivision to geometry and look at from this angle. Let's work on it a little bit more. I like to select this face and I like to insert a face and then extrude and extrude and extrude once again. So we created this very interesting shape. Now I like to create a hole in this area. So let's select this face and separate that part. And I like to scale it towards this way. But I don't like to use modifier, subdivision modifier for this so far. So let's hide this one and bring this one here. I like to extrude it. Extrude it, and then let's select these faces and extrude it towards this way a little bit. Now we can press Ctrl 2 and then we can add a loop cut, Ctrl B, add another loop cut, Ctrl B. And now we can select this body of the flashlight and we assign a Boolean modifier. Choose this one as a target. You can see if I just go to the object properties data and set the display as to wire, you will see that we have got the hole that we are looking for. And since this shape is round, we can actually work on this edge to make it round as well. So we need to just grab this edge, just make it like so to make it round. And now you can see we can do the same thing for here. Hold down Ctrl to deselect it and move it back. And now let's grab the entire and move them towards this way. Now we can play around with these edges to make it just a bit round. Or we can select these vertices and scale them inside. Okay guys, that's about modeling these nice flash light, but it's not finished, so we can make something like this. Let's add a stripe at the bottom of this. I for instead of face, E and E once again, I for instead of face. So we can make these part sharper by adding geometry. So let's assign a plane and we scale it down, and we just need a single vertex of this. Select the single vertex, Control I and then X, and delete the rest of that. Now look at from here, we move it closer and hold on Control and left click to assign a shape that you want. Now let's extrude it in y-axis, and then we need to apply a Solidify modifier. Let's fix it. Let's switch to solid mode and select these edges and move it to make this stripe just a bit thicker. And I like to scale this area just a bit inside. That's perfect. Control 2 to add 2 levels of subdivision. And we can assign a new loop cut. Let's grab these edges, which is located at the back side. You can see I selected already. And if extrude, I like to extrude it inside. Let's move the origin point of this to this area, and now we can scale it easily and move it down a little bit, and that's fine. I like to bevel this edge to make these sharper, and then let's set it to 3 instead of 2 level of subdivision. Very interesting. Let's turn it off. Shade out to smooth. And this is what we got. let's grab everything and we move it to its own collection. Flashlight. Okay friends, now the modeling is done and we created all of these very interesting shapes. So let's work on these to make it just a bit better. So we can use collection by collection. Let's first apply a cube, and this cube, let's set it to say wireframe, and we reset the 3D cursor and selection to cursor. So this is the center of our world. I like to take a copy of the folder, so we can press Shift, Ctrl Shift and S. First let's save it, Ctrl Shift and S, and I name it copy, or I name it apply modifiers. And now we can apply the modifiers. So let's click here and apply these two, and then we can select these and delete them. There is no longer need that. And then we can apply by Ctrl A. And then let's join these together. So we can select it and by Shift, hold down Shift and select multiple of these models, Ctrl J to join them together. And then we can now press RR 2 times, or let's select this one, RR 2 times, to actually rotate it. So it's looking fine, but I like to use empty for each of these collections. So let's add an empty. In this case, gonna be a sphere for this. Select both of these. Control L. Select the last object that you will select. It should be empty as an active object. Control P. Keep transform. Now we can press W 2 times to change it to this way. Let's delete this cube, and instead I like to add a sphere, and I will spread everything around it. Let's turn off wires as well. Control S to save it. Now what is the next collection? Is the garden tools. So let's apply each of these. Oh, here we got something interesting. Let's remove it, we don't need it. Or we can remove this face, and then we can add one level of subdivision for here. So let's Control A, Control J these two, and Control J. Now we can scale them. Move it here. Do the same thing. Control J, Control A for apply. And this one is perfect. But here I like to add more geometry to make these edges sharp. Yes, that's really good now. And Ctrl J these two together. Let's right click, set origin to geometry for both of these. RR 2 times and R 2 times here. We can actually add one level of subdivision only for this specific object. So let's press Ctrl 2 even, right click shade down to smooth and apply that. Now Ctrl J back. Scale it down. Right click shade out to smooth. Let's move it a little bit towards this way, and now it's fine. Shift, move the 3D cursor and add a sphere. Select both of these, select the sphere, Ctrl P, and keep transform. Now let's move the empty and scale it slightly. The next one is the headphone. This is the models that we created, that they have created so far. Let's shade out to smooth everything. And I like to move some of these back and leave some of these in front. So let's move a few of these back in y-axis so that we can have some of those, so that we can create some depth in this situation. And move inside. And then let's grab these and make this bigger and move it as well. Make these balls just a bit bigger. And if you want to animate these, you can watch my other course that I publish for free on a YouTube channel, and you can just start to animate each of these details with a very simple method. If you enjoy creative content like this, your support makes all the difference. Please like this video, subscribe to my channel, and hit the bell icon so you never miss an update. By watching the entire video and exploring my other content, you're helping me to continue to create and share valuable tutorials.